My parents kicked me out and left me homeless. Now they lost everything, so they broke into my home and claimed squatter rights. So I gave them a taste of their own medicine. My parents didn't want kids, so they were pissed when they accidentally had me. My childhood was initially good, but after I started growing out of the cute phase, my parents started hating me. After I turned 18, my parents told me that since I was an adult, they expected me to move out as soon as I could. I was working part-time and didn't have enough savings for college, but that didn't stop them from getting an official eviction notice that gave me 30 days to move out. I ended up renting a crappy apartment and working retail. Then after just a few months I got fired because my manager had it out for me and wrote me up for the stupidest things. I ended up going broke pretty fast because I was terrible at managing my own money and couldn't find steady employment, so I lost my apartment. I went back to my parents begging for help, but they refused to take me in, saying they already housed me for 18 years and couldn't bear to do it again. I ended up homeless and living out of a tent in someone's backyard in winter. My salvation came when one of the neighbors of my parents found out I was living out of a tent and offered to take me in for a little while so I wouldn't freeze. Thanks to their help, I was able to get back on my feet. I started going to community college, got an associate's degree and a decent job. Eventually, I bought my grandparents' house, who sold it to me for a third of the price. My job has me going away on the road periodically, so I would end up away from home for weeks at a time. Then one day, in late 2020, I came home after being away for over 2 weeks, only to find a large white van I did not recognize in my driveway. I was about to call the police until I saw the logo from my parents' business on the side of the van. I felt dread as I realized my parents had broken in somehow and were living in my home. When I walked in, they had the nerve to greet me like we were buddies. I told them to get the hell out, and they refused because it was Grandma and Grandpa's house and they had gone bankrupt, so they needed a place to live. I said it wasn't their house anymore because they sold it to me, and they would have known if they were involved in my life. We argued, and they refused to leave. My father told me it was his parents' house first, so that meant he and my mother had the right to live there if they wanted. I told them I had lived with them for 18 years and couldn't bear to do it again. Then I walked right into my bedroom, locked the door, and called the police. When the cops showed up, they were of no help. My parents claimed that they had already been there long enough to have residency, which was a complete lie. But I had no cameras to prove they weren't there a month. It was my word against theirs, so the police left, leaving my parents squatting in my house rent-free and rubbing it in my face. Finally, after 4 months, and now into early 2021, I managed to take my parents to court over their squatting. They tried to use the fact it was formerly my grandparents' house as some sort of leverage of residency. The judge didn't think that was enough, so they ordered that they needed to be out in a maximum of 30 days. After court, they confronted me and said they were disappointed in me for kicking out my own flesh and blood, laughed and called them hypocrites because that's exactly what they did to me without a care in the world for my well-being. My father looked enraged, but my mother stopped him from saying anything. That final month was spent with them either guilting me to try and make me change my mind or completely ignoring me. I put up a calendar in the living room and crossed off the days. I still remember that final day was March 2nd. Since they were so convinced they could make me let them stay, they didn't bother to try and look for an apartment until after the court eviction went through. They had to get a tiny and crappy studio apartment in the next city over because it was the only thing they could find on such short notice. My mother tried to give me sad looks while dropping hints that I should be feeling guilty that I was reducing them to living in such a place, but I just acted oblivious to it all until she finally stopped. The moment they had to leave for good, I breathed a massive sigh of relief the second that van went down the road.